Welcome to this explainer. Have you ever looked at your beautiful garden shrubs and thought, man, I wish I could duplicate these without spending a small fortune at the nursery? Well, if so, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to break down an absolutely incredible, highly effective method for propagating unpatented hydrangeas. We're pulling directly from the expertise of Danielle at Northlawn Flower Farm, and we're going to walk through a step-by-step method that completely takes the guesswork out of the entire process. Let's dive in.
Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or rather the massive number right here, 99%. Now, in the gardening world, we all know that guarantees are practically unicorns, right? Seeds fail to germinate, cuttings rot, the weather does whatever it wants, but the specific water propagation technique we're looking at today actually boasts a near-perfect success rate when you do it correctly. That should definitely catch any gardener's attention.
So, what does this all mean? The ultimate goal here is wonderfully simple. We want to get you beautiful, brand new baby shrubs without spending a dime or breaking a sweat. It's all about working smarter, not harder. As you'll see, by following just a few precise steps, you'll be able to turn your existing plants into a lush, multiplied landscape. And it requires surprisingly little hands-on time. All right, let's jump straight into section 1, the magic of water propagation. The absolute most crucial thing to understand right out the gate is that this whole journey begins with grabbing the perfect tip cutting. Now, what is that? It's exactly what it sounds like, the very top portion of the shrub. But here is the golden rule, and you really can't skip this. You have to take these from branches that are producing leaves only. Absolutely no blooms. Why? Because we need the plant to focus all of its internal energy on pushing out new roots, not on trying to sustain a pretty flower. If you start with a blooming branch, you're honestly just fighting an uphill battle from day one.
You know, what I really love about this quote from Danielle is how it just totally demystifies propagation for beginners. The word itself, propagation, can sound super technical, right? It conjures up images of fancy greenhouses, specialized rooting hormones, and complex irrigation systems. But her approach is specifically designed to be effortless. It's such a great reminder that getting free plants doesn't have to become your new full-time job.
Let's move right along to section 2, mapping the perfect timeline.
Now, as any gardener will tell you, timing is quite literally everything. So we've got to anchor this entire process to your local frost dates. If we use Danielle's Zone 6B as our guiding example, you'll notice the key milestones: a last frost in mid-April and a first frost in mid-October. The trick here is that the entire propagation timeline is reverse engineered from that critical first autumn frost date. That's because our new baby hydrangea desperately needs enough time to establish itself outdoors before the ground freezes solid. This timeline is a real game changer because it beautifully maps out the exact chronological journey. Check this out. You take the cuttings in late May or early June. Then, they just sit in water for 6 weeks until the end of July, which is when they move into soil indoors for another 6 weeks. By mid-September, when the brutal heat of summer has finally broken, you harden them off outside for a week. And finally, by October, they go straight into the garden. This precise mapped-out sequence ensures your little plant has a full 8 weeks to get its root system rock solid in the ground before that first frost hits.
Okay, let's get our hands dirty. Section 3, making the perfect cutting.
Let's zoom in on the actual physical snipping. First up, an early 6:30 a.m. wake-up call. Why so early? Well, in the early morning, the stems are fully hydrated and beautifully turgid. They haven't been stressed out by the blazing afternoon sun yet. Next, you just measure down about 8 to 12 inches and make your cut right beneath a leaf node, because that is where the rooting magic actually happens. You strip away the lower leaves so they don't rot in the water, leaving just 4 leaves intact at the top. And then, simply plop it in a glass jar of water. Honestly, that's the whole shebang.
Now for the water phase. Honestly, this is kind of the hardest part, just because it's a waiting game. And we gardeners can be an impatient bunch. But there are a few milestones to watch for. First, just keep that water topped up continuously. You're going to start seeing initial roots developing around the 3 to 4 week mark. And here's a fantastic bonus. Unlike soil propagation, where you often have to literally cut the top leaves in half to reduce moisture loss, water propagation eliminates that need completely. The water keeps the plant perfectly hydrated. Your only real job is to just watch the magic happen until that 6-week mark rolls around.
The wait is over. Section 4, moving cuttings into soil. So after 6 weeks of totally hands-off rooting in water, it's time to give that new root system a nutrient-rich home.
And it's wonderfully simple. Start by pre-moistening some professional-grade potting soil right in a standard 4x4 container. Now, whatever you do, don't just jam those delicate new roots into the hard dirt. Make a little hole first to protect them. Then gently pop your rooted cutting into that cell, cover it up softly, and give it a nice, gentle watering right at the soil level just to settle it all in. The transformation that happens next is highly satisfying. Once it's nestled in the soil, those initial water roots are going to branch out, form secondary rootlets, and rapidly expand throughout the entire container. You have literally successfully turned a single green stick into a fully functional baby plant with a robust root system. How cool is that?
Which brings us to Section 20, the busy gardener advantage. Now, you might be wondering, wait a second, if the cutting ends up in soil anyway, why even bother with the water at all? Why not just stick it in the dirt on day one? Well, it all comes down to your lifestyle. Propagating directly in soil is incredibly demanding. Without roots, a cutting in dirt dries out instantly. It requires constant misting, humidity domes, complex propagator systems, and literally daily monitoring. Water propagation, on the flip side, is wildly forgiving. It's travel-friendly. If your busy life takes you out of town for a week, your cuttings are going to be perfectly fine just sitting there in their jar of water. It is a completely hands-off approach for the modern busy gardener.
The absolute beauty here is that by completely bypassing that super fragile, unrooted soil phase, you completely eliminate the anxiety of rotting stems or the endless chore of constant misting. Because you patiently waited until it had an established root system before putting it in the dirt, you don't even need to coddle it. You simply treat it exactly as you would any normal household seedling sitting on a sunny windowsill, right up until it's time to harden it off and plant it outdoors.
So there you have it. You now possess the exact, structured formula to unlock literally a lifetime of free hydrangeas. I want to leave you with this exciting thought to ponder. Armed with nothing more than a pair of pruners and a simple jar of water, your existing garden is now a limitless resource. So step outside, take a look around at your plants, and ask yourself, what will you multiply first?